Welcome again to another Compliance Corner. I'm here with my colleague, Noelle Vestal. Noelle, say hi.
Hello. Hi.
And we are thrilled, beyond thrilled, to have Jill Lawson with us again. She was with us a couple of weeks ago, and it was a fabulous conversation. And we have her here again to talk to us about a new thing coming out of the DoD. It is a mandate to contracting officers. And Jill wrote about this in LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and we'll have a link in the show notes to her article. But it's a note to contracting officers about them needing to have their SPRS scores and their inability to re-up their contracts or make modifications to it unless they have it. So that's a lot of foreground. We're going to get into that. This is one of the reasons I love Compliance Corner, because we find these little things and they seem kind of minute, but then you read them and there's actually a lot there. So we're going to discuss that with Jill. Jill wrote this article and we can't wait to discuss it with her. But before we get any further, Jill, why don't you just talk to people, let them know who you are, because some people might not have seen you in our first video. So just introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Early. My name is Jill Lawson, and I retired from the federal government with 32 years, December 31st, 2019. Within those years, I spent 8 years as a Marine and 20 years as a DWIA Level 3 program manager. I worked at Marine Corps Systems Command, and then when Marine Corps Special Operations Command was stood at MARSOC, I was able to transfer down to Special Operations Command in MacDill Air Force Base. The last 7 years of my career, I was with Acquisition Policy, working for the deputy acquisition executive, and as such, I represented SOF 18L at the OSD working groups. One of those working groups was called the Focal Point. And the Focal Point is a DoD instruction that brings together acquisition, intel, and CIO. The goal being is that those three areas need to work together to bring defense to our forces. Back in 2019, January 2019, we heard about a new program the CIO was proposing called the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program.
Oh, yeah. Is that CMMC? Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
I don't know. And then we also heard this thing called Controlled Unclassified Information all at once.
I've heard of that too. Yeah. Okay.
So I was there and in the very beginning of CMC and CUI, and I was able.
You were there at the genesis, at the breaking of the ground.
And part of those conversations about why it was needed. It wasn't presented to the focal group like, okay, here's this thing we're going to do. It was like, here are the issues we are having. Our adversaries are literally taking our lunch money and the cafeteria, and we're not protecting ourselves.
We're going to go hungry if you continue that metaphor.
Seriously. Exactly. So, and then we were given some classified briefings about how they were doing it, and it was literally astounding. Not just myself, but all my peers and my friends in that working group. We were really stunned to the degree, to the intensity, to the intelligence, to the long-term planning that our adversaries are going through to get to our commercial companies that support the DoD. They know they cannot break into DoD, DoD warfare on the mainframes, but they know that they can most definitely get into, mom and pops, the small and medium businesses.
Yeah, you've got those low-hanging fruit. I mean, if I'm an adversary, why am I going to put an extra effort to try to go after, the big fish, when if I get a little tiny fish that will lead me to the big fish, it's so much easier.
Right, and that leading is called island hopping. And right after after DoD releases on their DoD site, when they release who win awards, after they release that, our adversaries are all over that. So anyway,
you're painting a kind of scary picture there, Jill.
Oh yeah, well. On top of what our adversaries do is that they start to follow at all social medias that company or any mention of that company, and then they find out who is mentioning it, and then from there they just keep on drilling down, stalking, drilling down, stalking, until they get to get a password. They figure out what a password might be. They figure something out because this is very focused. China's got over 1 million people 24/7 that are on the government's payroll to do this. Not just America, but all over the world. So again, when we walked out of that focal point meeting, we were just stunned. So I knew when I retired that this is brand new industry that was standing up, and I knew this is where I wanted to go. And I knew, well, all of us knew that because it's a new industry, there was going to be a lot of new companies that are not going to really understand what this is about. And then they're going to stand up and peddle services that are not going to get the defense industrial base to a CMC certification. It'll get them other places, but it won't get them there. So
it'll get them with a hole in their wallet.
Yeah, exactly. So so this is my fourth career in my life. And I'm very thankful that I have this, that you all are allowed me to come out here and to speak about what I'm very passionate about. And that is ensuring that we do have small and medium businesses that can achieve CMC certification, stay in business, still be competitive, because literally our defense depends on that.
Wow. Couldn't have said it better. That's a powerful statement, Jill. Why don't we start off and like I said, we'll have a link to this very important article you wrote in the show notes. But why don't you start off and just tell people about this article you wrote, right? It was about the new DoD's message to the contracting officers. And why don't you give us kind of the 2-minute summary of what the article was about?
Well, I wrote the article the first week of September. And what happened is June of 2022, June 6th, Undersecretary Acquisition Sustainment released a memo to all the acquisition executives and pretty much stated that the contracting officers have got to enforce the uploading of the NIST 800-171 self-assessment score based upon DoD methodology up to the Supplier Performance Risk System, SPRS system. And that score alone is not only what is required. What is required is that the company has to upload the system security plan, and which was used to be scored using the DoD methodology. And if that score was less than 110, then they have to put in a plan of action, a milestone, a POAM, on how they're going to get to the 110. And this refers to all the companies that have the DFARS, 252.204 7012 clause.
12 clause, right. Jill, I'm going to just stop you 1 second there because you said a lot, and I just want to make sure that everyone in the audience kind of understands that. We'll just take 1 minute and unpack that. So as a defense contractor, right, if you have a DFARS clause in your contract, it means that you are required to meet the 110 NIST 800-171 controls. And what this memo from the DoD is saying is that if you do not have your score reported in the SPRS, what does SPRS stand for? Now I'm blanking.
Supplier Performance Risk System.
All right, there you go. If you do not have your score, how many of those 110 controls you meet reported in SPRS, then you are liable under this memo. And more importantly, if you do not have if you don't meet the 110, but you report, let's say, for example, that you have a 90, you have to have the POAMs listed for how you're going to meet the additional 20. So that's kind of the breakdown.
Well, and
Noelle, what else would you add to that?
And something to just add to that is it has to be an honest SPRS score.
Oh, right.
I know this seems like a kind of obviously it would have to be honest, but I don't even know how many times I've heard Stacey Bastianic or John Ellis from the DIPCAC or whoever saying that so many individuals that they have reviewed who had, SPRS score, they're like, oh yeah, I'm 110 out of 110. Everything's great. And then they do these, what they're referring to as like paper audits, where they look at POAMs and, SSPs or system security plans, and they find out that they were nowhere near 110. Maybe they were at like negative 100 or something. I mean, it's been really egregious. So that's something that you always want to remember. I know and I've said this to so many customers and potential customers over the months, and it's just been, let's drive it home as much as we can. Be as honest as you possibly can be about that. Even if the story is not a great one, you make sure that the SSP reflects that. You make sure your POAMs reflect that. That's gonna serve you way better than lying, and then somebody comes and finds you and catches you on it.
Right. Reputational damage is very difficult to overcome.
So Jill, we interrupted you.
Sorry, yeah.
So no. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood everything that you had just said. So please continue.
Well, thank you for really unpacking that and drawing it out, articulating that better, because there's another thought that has to be added on to that. If you are a subcontractor, you still have to do that.
Yeah.
All right. And your prime does not have the legal ability to come in and inspect or verify or validate what you're saying. But just know this, is that if for some reason your score is pulled for a random statistical check and it is deemed to be inaccurate, then your prime can be penalized. And that, again, reputational damage is very, very difficult to overcome.
And even on top of just reputational damage, there absolutely can be a false claim involved there as well. So then you're talking about monetary damage. Absolutely. There's so many terrible things that can happen. So just go ahead and be honest about your SPRS score and make sure you get all the information in correctly.
And part of being honest is that ensure that you have an accurate system security plan.
Definitely.
I cannot emphasize enough. The system security plan is by far the most foundational document that will either bring you failure or success. There is no in between. It's failure or success. And your system security plan is the document that you create that will determine that. And also it will determine failure or success at what cost. Because you can fail at a great cost and you can succeed at a minimal cost. That system security plan is that essential document that, if done correctly and if analyzed and also the systems that the cloud and software systems that you choose to use, that system security plan is accurate within those frameworks, or those frameworks are accurate in the system security plan. Definitely.
So you kind of gave the high level summary of the article that you wrote, that you're on, that subcontracting officers are on the hook for ensuring that SPRS scores are noted, have been filed, and potential POAMs have also been filed. So let's talk about the implications of this, because some people can say, okay, I've have my SPRS score, I think it's pretty accurate, but let's just kind of make sure people understand what this whole article means. If you are a company and don't have that SPRS score, what does that mean?
Well, ANS told the acquisition executives to tell the contracting officers that they are to check SPRS before they engage in any awarding new proposals, and also any contract modifications. And my article in the first week of September was to pretty much say that there's end of year money. We call it sweep up money, and there's a lot of reasons there's sweep up money. So somebody wasn't executed that should have been, and they're going to lose the money. So program managers get together, they huddle, and they have a save the money huddle, and they transfer money between programs to make sure that the money is executed when the time frame is supposed to be executed, and the programs still stay alive. As such, a lot of those contractors that are looking to be on programs that receive extra funding, and then they want to change their orders. In order to change the order, you have to have a contract modification. This year, the closeout of FY22 was the first year that SPRS requirement had been added over, where the contracting officers were told back in June that, hey, you better check this before you do any contract mods. This is the first year it's really been enforced. It's always been a threat. It's always been out there, but this was the first year that ANS came back and said, thou shalt do these things. And so that article was to let everybody know, contractors know, get your system security plan done, get your SPRS score up there, and do it quickly so you can receive some of this windfall money. And so that was the purpose of it, and I hope that it really did bring some information to some companies.
Yeah. So one question I have, I mean, were any companies necessarily stopped, or were any contracts denied based on this?
We don't have any way of knowing, but I will say this. When you go on contract for the government, you don't see the contract of the government's like the tail of a comet. The comet was putting the program together, and putting the program together takes years, and there's millions and millions of dollars invested just to get to the point where you can even write a contract, where the program office knows exactly what needs to be purchased. And so when you go on contract, it's a huge deal, and the government really cannot afford to equip the armed forces and pick off contractors at the same time. When you're on contract, there's a reason you're there, and the armed forces really depends upon that commodity, whatever it is you're providing. So there is not, it's not met with, oh, gee, we want to get these people. Oh, it's like, oh my God, is my person going to get got? It's a completely different scenario. So program managers, I know if I was still a program manager, I'd be protecting the heck out of my contractors. But right. At the same time, I'd be on the phone. Don't do this to us. Keep us together.
I think you make a really, really good point, Jill, about it. That's something to keep in mind. These contracting officers don't want you to fail any more than you want to fail. That's really not what they want, because you make such a good point. It is such an amount of time and effort and energy and work that goes into just having one contract executed. It can take years to get a contract executed. So that contracting officer does not want you to fail, because if you fail, then they have to go through all that work again and find somebody else and do RFPs and all the things. And it's a lot of work that they don't want. So, it's important. I think that sometimes, and I understand why the feeling is there. There are some members of the DIB who I think feel kind of attacked by this, well, everybody's out to get me. It's not what it is. They really are. They want you to succeed. They genuinely do. It's in their best interest if you do, because they're not going to have to do all that work all over again. So I think it's a really good point that you brought up.
Yes. Yeah. Professionally, on the acquisition community, professionally losing a contractor is devastating. It can also affect careers too.
Yep.
You can, and I mean, it's negative. It's bad juju all the way around. So FY22 was like the closeout of FY22 was the first year that the contracting officers were pushed. What actually happened, we'll never know. But I can tell you this: by the time FY23 comes around, there's not going to be many alligator tears for any contractors that do not have their SPRS score, their accurate SPRS score. And by FY23, the old timer, the people in business for a while with the government, they had their SPRS score not being 110. I don't know about that. Yeah. That really should be 110, and that system security plan should be able to pass the most fervent systems engineering assessment from the government.
Especially since they've had so many extra years to do it, right? And again, and CMMC comes out next year too. So if you think that you're not, I mean, I think the alligator tears analogy is fantastic. Nobody's going to cry for you at this point. You've been warned and given multiple stays of execution to get this done. You have to get it done. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So one thing I just want to get out into this conversation is kind of just one more thing on the implications, right? So, a company, let's say a company does not have an SPRS score, and their contracting officer has to, kind of take out the carrot and or the stick, I should say, and kind of say, okay, here are the implications for you not having your SPRS score. So you said it's that they can't re-up the contract. So just to make sure that everyone understands exactly what that means, because we were talking about this before the show, you were explaining it a bit to me. One, just make sure it's crystal clear for everyone in the audience.
Well, yeah, right. The memo stated no contract modifications and without the SPRS score. And what that means, and I guess the best way I can say this is, picture is 1,000 words, is that I've seen a picture of a sailboat with a dinghy, and the dinghy's name was contract, and the sailboat's name was modifications. So that's it, period. When you put your base contract, it's going to change. Things are going to happen. And so to not be able to modify that contract, because you were allowed to go on contract without the SPRS score, and then something happens, and then inflation. Something happens with inflation.
Right.
You get hit really hard. And all of a sudden, you cannot deliver that thing anymore without having a cost increase. Guess what? You're still going to be held to that delivery schedule, but there's not going to be any modifications. And that's
I'm getting an image in my head of the Tin Woodman without his can of oil.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually a really good way of putting it. And you're totally right, Jill. There are so many times. I mean, what if you end up in a situation where, you had 10 people on a contract, you get in there and you realize you actually need 12, that, you need 2 extra engineers, and you need to make a modification to that contract saying, well, now it's 12 people instead of 10. That's a simple thing that people do all the time. But like you said, if that modification goes through and they have to look at your SPRS score and you don't have an SSP and you don't have a POEM and your SPRS score maybe is a little bit like cushioned on it and a little bit inflated, then you're going to have to learn how to do that contract with 10 people and not 12.
Exactly. And it also ties the government's hand, because sometimes contracts modifications, the government is the instigator. Something happened and they need to modify that contract. And then the government is at a loss too. And again, all this is about equipping our warfighters. We are here for the defense. This is not a nebulous little task that, okay, if it goes south for a little while, it's okay. No, it's not okay. Things are our global situation, our global defense strategy really does depend upon these little minute pebbles in the water, pebbles in the pond. And that really is why it's so important that the system security plan be accurate. It really describes how you're implementing the NIST 80171 upon whatever platforms you choose, and that all your software, third-party software, is in compliance. It meets the needs. It's so complicated, and it takes a long time to get to 110. It's just not something that you could say, oh, like I'm going to buy these. I'm going to buy all the policy documents from an organization. And so it will take me about 2 months to get up to speed. No. It's usually, I guess, Noelle, would you say about a year and a half?
We're
hearing? About a year and a half?
I mean, for me personally, when I did it, and I've told people this many, many times, when I did it myself for a small organization, it was about 10 or 11 months. And I say this to people that I have an IT background. I mean, this is what I've been in the DoD managing programs for years. I have an IT background, and it still took me that long. So if you have somebody in your organization who might be able to do this but has no background on IT, it's going to take them even longer. So that's something to really consider as well, is do you have somebody who's dedicated to do this, and do they have like that skill set to understand this kind of stuff and really dive into it? So yeah, I'd say easily a year to a year and a half, ddepending on what kind of person you have involved. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I know we're getting close to time, so I just want to make sure we follow up or finish with, what are some of the things people should be doing going forward. Let's say they heard this and hear this video, this conversation with you, Jill, and they get religion and say, all right, I think this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and I'm going to go find my contracting officer and get on the right side of this. And so, what does that mean? What do they need to be doing?
Well, you cannot do this alone. Really, literally, it takes a team of different skill sets to help you understand what you have to do. You need to have somebody who understands government contracts, one that understands controlled and classified information, one that understands NIST, and one that understands CMMC. And so, because of all those skill sets are needed, you, as a small business person, you really cannot do all of that yourself. Even with the IT department, the IT department has certain skills, but then you need those other complementary skills, especially to understand what it takes to pass a CMC assessment. And there is one more bugaboo, and that is the DFARS 252.204.7012 contract clause, which is the clause that mandates NIST 80171, and also cyber incident reporting, was put on every contract except for commercial off-the-shelf contracts. So your contract, if you have that, you may not even have CUI, because CUI was not the impetus of it being put on that contract. So the very first thing that a company has to do is determine, do I really have CUI in my contract? Why is that clause on my contract? For a couple of my customers, they went back and they said, no, you do not have, the contracting officer validated, they do not have CUI, and instead they just had federal contract information, which is a much easier standard.
Easier thing to
achieve.
Follow.
Much easier.
Right, it's
yeah,
self-attested. It's only 15 controls, much easier. So, you cannot do this alone. You really need to reach out to professional companies. Mm-hmm.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. If you like this conversation, everyone, with Jill, we're going to have her on our CMMC Day on October 26th. We'll put the sign up in the show notes. But Jill, as always, very informative, great insights. We're going to look forward to speaking with you again in just a couple of weeks. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Jill.
Nice to chat again, Noelle. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.